Guys, thank you for sticking around with me so far. I am super, super thrilled now. We're going to bring on a friend of the show, someone I've been following for a little while, and found him through another show that I was on at one point in time, MSK, and seems to be a really great guy. Puts out great content, especially his Sunday morning shows or Sunday evening shows. Forget exactly when they are. I usually watch them Monday mornings while I'm at work or listen to them passively there, but does a great job breaking down the Bible, biblical stories and whatnot. But he's more than that. He's a writer for Bounding into Comics. He's a critic. He's all into the pop culture news and all that good stuff. Very similar to some of the stuff that I cover. So I'm very thrilled to have him on the show, and I hope he'll come back on again. So guys, without any further ado, please help me welcome onto the show for the very first time, Society Reviews. All right, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for being with me today. I've found you I was telling you a little while ago. I found you through MSK, and been starting to follow you and checking in on you. And you've got a great Sunday show that you do, and then you've got other shows that you do throughout the week. And I try one of the hardest things for me to do is follow and watch everybody's show that I'm like semi-networking with and following and trying to support and stuff like that. So I have like a calendar of like when people's shows come out, and I try to watch them when I can, but then I'm like, I forget I have a family sometimes. But but
sounds like the name of a movie.
Yeah. But I have enjoyed watching you, and we've spoke about maybe doing something in April to talk about faith. We're not doing that tonight necessarily, but really, really appreciate your deep dives on all that. And I think a lot of you, but welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I know MSK is probably not the best glowing recommendation for a lot of people. As you tell people to come from MSK, it's like, oh God, you're one of those things. Like, no, trust me, I'm not him at all. But I am. I'm here on the show occasionally, so yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, he seems to have a pretty good rotating panel of folks, and everybody that's been on there I've talked to is pretty cool. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on. So what I've got you on today for is we were talking about kind of DMing about the hypocrisy on the right. So this past Sunday show, you were talking about that. I was telling you too that another guy I watched, Mark Dice, big guy, been around for a long time. He was talking about this too, and I find myself really fortunate to be surrounded by people that aren't afraid to call out our own side. If we see Trump do wrong, we're going to call Trump out for doing what he's doing. I don't love some of the things that Trump has done. I did not vote for him in 2016. I voted for what's his name, Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate. And then in 2020, I voted for him, and we got that whole thing. But yeah, definitely voted for him this time because, again, a lot of it is how the media presented it. A lot of it is, okay, are you hiring this person because of their morals or because of the job you're trying to get them to do? So I had to weigh all that out. But yeah, I don't love a lot about what Trump does in his personal life or has done in his personal life, and I have no problem calling that out. He's not free from judgment as far as I'm concerned. And he should be scrutinized for things he does wrong, especially now that he's on, I say the taxpayers' dollars, even though he's not taking the payroll. He's still there to do a job for us. So Elon Musk, any of them, and of course the Elon Musk thing, I mentioned that because that's kind of what got this conversation started. And you were talking about it Sunday. So if you want to, because I think you've looked into this a little bit more than I have. I know you did a really great story, and I don't want you to take away from it. In fact, I'm going to link to your Sunday show in the show notes below, guys. Please go check him out. Great show every Sunday, by the way. But this past one was one of 3, I think.
Yeah, part 3. So we got a couple more coming up. But yeah, it was part 3 yesterday. So essentially, last night I was doing a series that was about, satanic panic and kind of the biblical truth about what was actually going on during that time frame, because there's kind of a secular narrative about what was happening in the 80s and the 90s regarding that. It's basically like, oh, these wacky Christians were saying everything was from the devil and they were just going insane. And then we start going deeper into kind of like, well, you noticed a lot of your musicians back then in the 50s 50s, 60s, and 70s. They were all inspired by well-known Satanists like Anton LaVey and Aleister Crowley, and they started influencing a lot of that into their music, and there was a lot of Eastern mysticism in their music, and then a lot of them just straight up admitted to like, oh, by the way, I have a spirit that talks to me that gives me all the lyrics to these songs. And it's like, when you start hearing it from their own words, you start going, I think there was probably a little something more going on here, right? But for last night's episode, I was talking in context of the sexual revolution that happened in the 1960s and the 1970s, which I think 65 years later has still have a detrimental effect of our society, especially as far as, gender relationships, modern relationships between men and women. If you look back on what we were pushing in the 60s to where we are now, you see that we definitely got the short end of the stick pretty severely there. And so the story, what happened is that late Friday, where we were doing another stream, which ironically enough, we were having a conversation midstream about how men need to be more accountable for partaking in women's poor life choices, meaning that, this is, for example, we talk about these women on OnlyFans who get paid millions of dollars to show their bodies on OnlyFans, and we say that, no, this is bad. Why are women like promoting this, doing this stuff to their bodies? At the same time, there are men out there who are paying God knows how much money to these girls just to see pictures of them naked, and it's like, so there is a level of responsibility on both the men and the woman in that dynamic here, right? But on the same token, as we were doing the show, Ashley St. Clair, who I guess is a conservative influencer on social media, right wing, she's in that bubble of like, the Milos and the Dave Rubins and stuff like that. So
a grifter is my understanding. Little grift in here and there. I don't know.
I wouldn't even argue against it at this point, especially with what the direction of this whole thing is. So late Friday night, she came out with a post saying, hey, by the way, that kid that I have 5 months ago, it was Elon Musk's baby. So I'm coming out with this now because apparently the media is coming out with a hit job and they're going to expose the truth. So I'm going to get out in front of this and tell everyone that, by the way, I slept with the world's richest man a few months ago. And then all of a sudden, yeah, exactly right. But now all of a sudden, I'm raising his kid. So as a result of this, people start going, there are some people who are like, wait a second, you're a conservative influencer who's been very prominent and vocal about being against single motherhood and stuff like that, already being a single mother yourself. You had a kid with another guy who you're not currently with, and now you have two baby daddies and two different kids now, but you're still going to be a voice of reason, quote unquote, for the right. It's like, how does that work in any way, shape, or form whatsoever? You can very easily call her a hypocrite, among other things that you can probably say and not say here on YouTube, right? So as a result of this, there are people who was like, what are you doing? Like, so basically all those rumors about you being promiscuous and sleeping with anyone to get ahead, being the grifter, it seems like it's all true if you've come out publicly and admitted that, hey, by the way, you slept with Elon Musk and now you're having his kid. Allegedly, we still don't know, but I mean, who knows? We'll figure out in the next few days how that whole falls apart. And then as a result of this, surprisingly enough, there were a lot of people on the right who were seemingly defending this and congratulating her as if somehow she had just made an announcement. It's like, oh guys, we're having a baby. Like there was like some kind of like gender reveal like thing. It's like, oh, me and blah 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 are having our first kid, and everyone's like, oh my god, congratulations. Like that's not what happened here. She literally just admitted to having a one night stand with Elon Musk and having this kid, and apparently Elon's not even really in the picture. It's not like they were dating secretly behind the scenes and now it's come public. It's like they just slept together. He's apparently not even talking to her. She's basically trying to get his attention on the Twitter platform, and that's not really going very well. So why is everyone trying to, I guess, protect this Ashley St. Clair woman and Elon Musk for being fornicators and for being basically liars, hypocrites on the highest level? Why are we pretending like they're somehow in the right here? And it's because it's from two perspectives that I've noticed. One is that, you have these people on the right who are just like, I don't care what anyone does, behind closed doors. I just want to win. So in other words, they'll really look a blind eye at absolutely anything if they feel like that they're quote unquote winning in the culture war, right? That's their view of things. Then you have people who are too close to both Ashley and Elon Musk to be honest about what's going on here, and they don't want to rock the boat. So it's like they don't want to burn their bridge with Elon Musk or burn their bridge with Ashley Shea Claire. So they'll pretend like that. Oh no, I'm so happy for you. I'm all here with you and whatnot. Instead of going, wait a minute, like what are we doing here? Because if you're the face of, oh, I'm so against single motherhood, this is not what we should be promoting in our society, blah blah blah, and then you just became baby mama number 4 to a guy who already has like 11 children before you, those things don't really jive. Like, you know, we at some point you have to like look in the mirror and be like, what are we actually doing here as a movement? Or is the whole thing just pro wrestling now? Is it just phony? Because if it's all phony, just tell me that it's phony, and I'll cheer along like, you know, we would cheer along Macho Man Randy Savage back in the day if I know this is all fake. So it's like, let me know where this whole thing is going, because it seems like right now, if you're trying to get into the sphere of right-wing politics, it's all just one massive grift with a bunch of hypocrites who have just been popularized over the course of the last 10 years, making it seem like they actually stand for something when they stand for absolutely nothing. And it's kind of a bigger problem here too, where it's like, I've heard stories, especially in that DC circle over there, that the stuff that goes on behind closed doors at these, you know, TPUSA events and the CPAC events, they're basically no different than what you see at the leftist events here too. So it's like, again, what are we actually doing here? Is this just Monday Night Raw at this point? Because like, if that's the case, I can go watch something else.
There you go. Yeah, so it is funny to see, and not funny really, but
funny and sad.
I mean, yes, I mean, I think we've all always kind of been on the same page as far as like, all right, we know politicians are hypocrites. You know, if the left does something or calls out something on the right, there's a pretty good chance they've done it themselves, you know, or they actually support it behind closed doors. If they didn't support it in front of the cameras 4 to 8 years ago when we had a different president or something like that. And plenty of evidence of that. We're seeing that over and over again. That happens on the left and the right. I think it's stupid. I hate it. I wish they'd stop. But like you're saying, we've moved now to where, and Elon, I don't know if he was the one that kind of coined it, but we move now to this new media, which is us, you know, us being out here with our platforms, speaking of power, speaking the truth, you know, providing receipts usually with everything that we present versus what mainstream media does, or the legacy media, we'll call them, because they're on the way out, hopefully. But we're not the politicians. We're not the legacy media. We're not part of the establishment. We're free media, independent media. And we're out here sharing these stories and putting, you know, we have our own bias and perspective on there. But the accuracy and unbiased is significantly greater than what you find in legacy media. But you see so many on the right fall suit with what the left has done for so longer. And like you were saying, just they're just kind of saying the same thing. It's like, oh, well, it's wrong when you do it. It's okay when we do it. You know, hey, here's one of ours. It's fine. You know, I don't know if Charlie Kirk has commented on it, but you mentioned TP USA, and I know he's a big one, that big advocate of, you know, single parent homes, you know, being an advocate against that, rather, you know, speaking out against that, fatherless homes and everything like that. And then, you know, I can see somebody like that coming in here and saying, hey, you know, congratulations. And look, I think Elon does some great work, no question about it. I don't put him on a pedestal. I don't think he's the greatest human being that's ever lived. I'm sorry, there's only been one perfect person that I know of that's ever walked this earth, and he ain't it. Far from it, in fact.
He's not brain chip guy. That I can tell you that much. So.
Dude, right. So, you know, if the rumor mill is correct and what they're reporting is correct as far as how active he is in his other kids' lives, he's not going to be that active in this one either. And it's going to be a fatherless home situation. And I'm sorry, like you were saying on Sunday's show, and I'm not a preacher, but I did ask to preach one Sunday morning, share a sermon one Sunday morning, and I did it on Father's Day, 2024 or 3. I can't remember. 3, I think. And my biggest thing was I was talking about, I had the stats, the numbers, every little thing down that I could find of fatherless homes. And of course I was talking about fatherless home like you and me, but also fatherless, you know, homes without God, and showing the correlation of how drastic of a change it is having a father present versus no father present. And a lot of people on the right support that same ideology. And like, yes, fathers need to be in the homes. Fathers need to be present. fathers need to be active in their kids' lives. But then also, hey, great job on getting knocked up by one of the wealthiest men in this country, if not the world, one of the wealthiest men. And, you're taken care of for life. You basically hit the jackpot. That's what we're congratulating her on. They're not congratulating on her, even though they say it in the comments, on growing your family. It's not a family. I'm sorry. If mom and dad aren't together, that I have a hard time even calling that a family. Like, I get it. Sometimes there are, single fathers or single mothers, and it just has to be that way for one reason or another. It is what it is. My heart goes out to you. I wish things were perfect, but this isn't one of those situations. Like, come on. No. Like you said, was there dating? There definitely wasn't marriage. Like, there was no attempt at all to make this a family. And that breaks my heart, because I would love to see that, especially a triumph by the right, because the right is supposed to be the conservative, the more Christian leaning, the more right, as far as like right mindset, going down the right path kind of thing. I feel like this is just one of the examples, but it's the most recent one. One of the examples where we just drop the ball and end up getting egg on our face.
Well, which makes you beg the question, like, why are we even listening to these people in the first place? You know what I mean? It's like, what makes any of these people, quote unquote, better influencers of the culture than me or you or anything else like that? Just because they have more Twitter followers, because they have more YouTube followers? It's like, especially when it comes to, like, the women, because I think for women it's very, very easy for them to get into, quote unquote, the right-wing sphere and try to convince everyone that they're all conservative and that they're Christian and all this other stuff, because they say a few things that sound good, and the next thing you know, everyone starts swarming like to them, but they don't have any kind of lifestyle that makes people believe that they actually practice what they preach, or they actually believe anything that they're saying. Because, I mean, Ashley St. Clair is not the first right-wing influencer who's been exposed in some kind of sex scandal in just the last 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years. I mean, this is kind of an often thing that we're seeing over and over again. But because this sphere allows so much attention to people, that's really which is what they crave. They crave the attention, they crave the influence, and they'll say whatever they want. They give you all the window dressing you could possibly ask for, but they don't actually really believe in anything that they're saying here. And if these are the people who we're, quote unquote, propping up because they're on our side, then it's like our side is basically a house of cards as it stands anyway. So like what are we actually like fighting against here? This is supposed to be, if we're looking at this as, quote unquote, a culture war, and we're battling, the big red dragon, like, who do we have on our side that's actually going to put up a fight? Because if this is the case, we're going to get like BTFO'd pretty swiftly.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with every bit of that. And, one of our biggest fights is, like abortion. We talk about that all the time. The fathers don't have any say. The father should have some say if they should be able to be aborted or not. At least that, they bring that up in the conversation as kind of a pushback point. They're like, well, no, it's not. It's my body, my choice. It's like, well, no, it's not, because the father, there's always that element, that there's always that constant push for the father to be present, for it to be the family conversation, which, of course, obviously we don't want the abortion anyway, but they keep putting that out there. Like, what about introducing the father back into the equation, giving the man the equal rights? Well, here we kind of let the guy slide, and it's like, hey, you're sowing your seeds. Good for you. Let me sit back here and applaud you like I'm a Andrew Tate or, an MSK or whatever. Let me go, woo, spread that seed, buddy.
Yeah, right.
But I do feel like we have to walk this really, there's like this really tight rope that we have to walk on, both as, I think, the conservative party, and I say conservative, I guess it's the Republican Party. I don't know if I'm definitely more conservative.
I mean, neither one of them seem very conservative at this point, right?
Right. But also as a Christian. So one of the things I covered this past week, and a buddy of mine, Third Relify, I was mentioning him earlier. I got his take on it, and that was, Tim Pool never coming over to Rumble, and now he's coming over to Rumble, and everybody's lauding him like this big deal, like, oh, Tim Pool's finally coming over to Rumble, after everybody else kind of paved the way and made it safe for him to come over and profitable for him to come over. He's like, I'm finally coming over. And then you've got people that's not a grift, but that's just one example of somebody, shifting gears a little bit to the free speech platforms. But then you've got the other part of the conversation that I had, which was, and Chrissy Mayer called it out. Shout out Chrissy Mayer. But Brett Cooper was talking about cancel culture on the right. And that was her first show back. And she was talking about like, what's her name? Whitney Cummings on New Year's. How she was just for 5 minutes straight, 10 minutes straight, she was just rolling, knocking against Biden and the left and CNN and the pharmaceutical companies and all that. And people were like, oh my God, this is crazy. I can't believe she's been taken off the air. This is nuts. And then the rest of us were like, it's kind of safe now, though. Like, why are we applauding her right now in 2025? I mean, if she did this 2-3 years ago, that'd be different.
If she did this in 2020, then it would be a completely different situation. But, you know, you've noticed that there's been a number of celebrities who have very, very quietly flipped on a number of key issues. Like, now all of a sudden people are being like, well, you know, I don't really know about, you know, all those vaccines that we made everyone get a few years ago. Like, maybe those lockdowns weren't such a good idea. It's like, well, you know, Biden, I mean, maybe he wasn't all there. It's like, where was this 5 years ago when everyone else was saying it and everyone else was getting censored online for making the exact same point? Now that there's not a push to quote unquote curl disinformation or misinformation, now everyone can openly say what we were saying 5 years ago, and now they're being paraded as some kind of heroes because they spoke out at a time where it was safe for their careers to actually speak out against it.
That's right, but that goes back to the walking the tight line, right? The little tightrope here. So it's like, okay, do we accept them over and without judgment? Or like you were saying, I think you were saying, I want to say it was you on your show, was saying, do we still hold them accountable for what they did? Do we still call out the wrongs and say, look, it's great that you're over here now. If that's truly where you are and that's truly what you feel, like coming to the Lord, like, but you got to recognize your past sins. You got to come to terms with that. You got to make peace with that. You got to account for that in some way, like Zuckerberg, you know, like, hey, I think Trump's a badass now. And, you know, and I'm going to open up and I'm going to do all this and that. Okay, but what about everything you did? What about all that stuff you did? Whitney Cummings, I think it's great that you did a 5-minute little piece on CNN, and a lot of the stuff that you're asking questions about now and saying now are, you know, a little safer, sure, a little interesting, you know, as far as what you're still pushing against, but at the same time, it's safe. It's okay. Where was this at? And you criticized folks before in the past. You had vaccine mandates at your show and everything. Like where are we going? What's going on here?
For a lot of these people, like for a lot of these people, it's just the fact that, you know, now they've realized that throwing the pom-poms for the left is no longer convenient for them and convenient for their career anymore. So they're trying to essentially drum up a new fan base with like the other side. We've seen a few people do this over the last few years. Like Michael Rappaport is a perfect example of this. You know, Michael Rappaport, you go back 8 years to what this guy was saying. Like he was like every single day video about he hates Trump and he can't stand Trump supporters and F Trump, F this and all this stuff. Then he realized a couple of years ago that his side, the left, especially the ones in New York, were very, very anti-Semitic and didn't exactly support a lot of his views on, you know, the whole Palestine-Israel situation. So over the last year, he's all of a sudden done a complete 180. He started saying a lot of positive things about Trump and started saying a lot of positive things about, you know, Israel and the right. And now all of a sudden he isn't, you know, that anti-Trump guy that he was a few years ago. Eddie Griffin's another guy who does a complete 180. You go back to some of the things that he said and did on video regarding, you know, conservatives and the left, I mean, the right and all this other stuff. Now all of a sudden it's like, he's like, oh yeah, I don't believe we actually went to the moon. And it's like, oh, okay, so here comes this guy now. And like there's a number of people who you can like throw in there as well. Like you mentioned what's his face, the Facebook dude, Zuckerberg,
yeah,
he came out on Joe Rogan trying to make it seem like, oh, I totally agree with everyone that I've been censoring over the last several years that I agree with now. And instead of actually taking accountability, and this is kind of the problem here, because none of these guys have actually taken accountability for what they said in the past. What Zuckerberg tried to do was that, oh, it was depression from the Biden administration, man. I my hands were tied. There was nothing that I can do. So yeah, a lot of you guys got boned on, you know, Instagram and Facebook over the last several years. But I mean, I couldn't say no to Biden. What could I possibly do? So it's like now all of a sudden he wants to present himself as if, no, he's your friend, when quite literally, when, like I said, all the stuff that and all these people were saying 5 years ago, you were getting knocked off these platforms 5 years ago for saying the exact same thing. They wouldn't allow you to say that, oh, maybe the election was a little fishy there. What happened to all those 4 a.m. votes? You weren't allowed to say that 5 years years ago.
Right.
You weren't allowed to say that, hey, these lockdowns and everyone trying to shut down the country and the world and the economy was bad. You weren't allowed to say that 5 years ago. You certainly weren't allowed to say, hey, why are we trying to force everyone to take these shots here? And none of these things have even been verified or whatever the case may be. Hell, to this day, you still can't say that. Isn't it weird that a lot of people seem to be dying of, like, I don't know, heart attacks and turbo cancers that just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's like really, really young people are getting it now? What could have possibly changed over the last few years that could have caused this? You're still not allowed to make that connection now. But all of a sudden, these people are your friends. All of a sudden, they're the good guys in this scenario. It's like, really? Is that the angle that we're going to try to work here?
Yeah. That's what they're going for.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then talking about hypocrites and kind of the grifting thing. And I think you not hit on her. You mentioned her
first.
You mentioned her again in your show. I think it's the chick that looks like Wendy from Wendy's with the red hair that was like the OnlyFans or whatever, and now she's like super Christian and everything.
Yeah, her name was Nalia. So the funny thing with Nalia is that, I actually defended her because, unlike a lot of the other women who have tried to go to like this grift of this slow grift of like, oh, I'm Christian, oh, I'm conservative now. She's one of the few women who's actually taken somewhat accountability for her past and for the things that she has done, like, publicly. And it's like, especially guys in our sphere, what do we always say? It's like, wouldn't it be great if women actually were held accountable and took accountability for like their past actions? And she's one of the few who's actually done that so far. So I give her credit more than I give people like Ashley St. Clair and Lauren Southern and a few other women in their sphere who have basically avoided any kind of accountability for a multitude of things they've done, right? So it's like, I defended her, be like, hey, look, if she's genuine, she's admitted to the things that she's done. She says she's not proud of them. She's trying to move away from those things. If someone is genuinely seeking repentance for the things that they have done in the past, we should afford that to them. The problem is that we're trying to award people forgiveness and quote unquote repentance for people who haven't actually taken any accountability for the wrongdoings in their life. It's like, how many times have you heard the story of like a woman who just broke up with her boyfriend and she was doing all kinds of debaucherous stuff, from like drugs to sex and alcohol and all these terrible things. But then when they break up, what's the first thing that she says? Oh, it was all his fault. I was following him. He was making me do all these things. He was the problem. But now that I'm separated from him, now I'm good again, right? No accountability for anything that you actually partake in the whole time period, right? And you just go on from the next guy to the next guy making the same mistakes and the same mistakes. If there's no accountability, there's no genuine change of heart. It's just like you're just passing the buck of your decision making on somebody else. It was somebody else's fault, and because all you've done is blame that person and taking no accountability of yourself, you're just going to keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And when I publicly pointed this out to a few people who are supposed to be on our side, I got a lot of pushback from people, and to the point where people were getting very, very angry about me pointing out, hey, look, this is a girl who's admitting to sleeping around with high-profile people on the right. She's now a 2-time single mother. She's not who she says that she is. She's a harlot at best, and at worst, there's a whole bunch of things that I probably can't say on YouTube right now. But if we can't admit that from an objective standpoint, it's like, what are we doing? It's like, why are so many people willingly jumping on the grenade hill to take one for this woman who's basically spit in the face at everything that she claims that she believes in and everything you guys supposedly believe in? It's like, why is it that we can't have an honest conversation about what's going on here? Is it the fact that you guys have skeletons in your closet for yourselves, and you can't look at this situation objectively because you notice that you've basically been guilty of the same things that she's now publicly been ousted for? So you're kind of defending her in this realm of, well, by defending her, I'm defending me from these allegations of things that I should probably come clean with myself. You don't want to take that accountability, and that's the hiccup here? Or is it the fact that you've just been promoting this person's lifestyle for so many years and still promoting it, that even when her immorality gets shined to the light where everyone can see it, you morally can't make a stand and say, okay, this is bad, this is wrong, because you're the one who's out there actively promoting this lifestyle? So you have two sides here that, when it comes to particularly the sexual sins of women, they just can't be honest about what's really going on. Now, if we're talking about the sexual sins of men, we can have a problem about that, no problem. I mean, let's be honest here. Elon Musk, 11 kids, 4 women. That's not exactly something that we would promote around here. We have no problem talking about the baby mama drama of people like Nick Cannon and Tyreek Hill and Antonio Cromartie, who have like 15 kids with like 7 and 8 different women. We have no problem talking about that and shaming those guys. Why can we do that for the men, but we can't do that for the women? Why is it that everyone has to get emotionally involved when the women are being discussed for their essentially immoral behavior, but it doesn't work the same way? And because too many people are emotionally involved in that whole thing, we can't have an honest conversation about what's going on in our society. And our society is only getting worse as a result of that because no one's taking accountability.
So I feel like when you talk when you breathe out and when you breathe in, because I never hear you take a breath. It is just so constant. Like your brain is moving so fast and your mouth is able to keep up. Yeah. Mine doesn't work that way. So I love that about how you're rolling. It's an amazing gift.
It's kind of like a powder keg mentality. It's like when you go, you just go.
It's an amazing gift. Hey, I want to close with this, and this again is kind of what I was just mentioning, but again, I think it kind of brings it all together. The left, like just really says, hey, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion. We are the party of all that. We're the party of inclusion, and we want everyone to feel loved. And well, oh wait, you think differently than us? No, you got to go away. I mean, they call MAGA the cult, but really, when you look at it, it really seems like if you're not in lockstep with everything that they believe in and everything they support and everything they push, you know, pro-abortion, pro-LGBTQIA, blah, 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 to something, whatever that is, you know, pro, you know, single family homes, pro, transitioning kids, like you are a leper, you know, get away from us. So the right has in recent times been exceptionally more inclusive in allowing these people to come over, embracing them. We can just look at our current cabinet, right? Or administration with like the RFKs, the Tulsi Gabbards, I don't want to say Vivek, but you know, he was on there. Even Donald Trump was a Democrat. You know, it's just people have migrated over this. Some of it's legit, some of it's real. We were talking about the OnlyFans chick becoming a Christian. You got the same. You got a lot of people coming over genuinely wanting to change their life and be better and to serve the Lord and accepted him as their savior. And then you got some of them that may be grifting. You know, how do we strengthen ourselves as a, you know, I don't know if you want to say Christians, but anybody on this conservative side, how do we strengthen our positions, our base, you know, the people that are over here, our voter base, our pool, our faith base, whatever. How do we strengthen and grow it without bringing in the wrong people? How can we sift through these people and figure out you're legit, you're not, you need to be criticized, you're not, outside of just being an equal judge of like, if I'm going to call this out on the left, I need to call it out on the right. Outside of something like that, like how do we walk that line? What is the sifting tool that we should be using? Any thoughts on how we kind of figure that out, or is it trial by error?
There's a simple answer, but people aren't going to like it. It's actually standing for what you claim to believe in, right? Because, I mean, as you mentioned here, we've let in so many people who, you know, just say the quote unquote the right things publicly, and then we just embrace them with open arms, not being like, hey, wasn't this the same guy just a few years ago who said this or that? This is the same guy who allowed in who supported a lot of these policies that we're being hampered with now. Like, there's no actual accountability for the people that we're just letting in. We're just letting them in because essentially we're trying to prove that somehow we're just as open and accepting as the left is, because they always accuse us of not being open and accepting. But if we just start letting, you know, trans people in and gay people in, we can show the left and no, we're just as accepting as these guys. Well, in the process of doing that, you slowly just become them. Like, and this is kind of like the running joke when it comes to politics, that the right is basically just where the left was 10 years ago. And, you know, they haven't progressed to where the left is yet. It's because we're always essentially moving the line and moving the line and moving the line. And as a result of that, our two biggest leaders, quote unquote, right now in our movement is Donald Trump, who, for all, you know, the good Donald Trump has done, let's be honest here, Donald Trump, lifelong Democrat, didn't really turn Republican until about like a decade and a half ago, somewhere within that range. So, I mean, you have a guy who is lifelong to the left, still very left wing on a number of issues that conservatives are more right wing about to this day, but we kind of give it a pass because it's Trump. And he's like the guy like leading the charge now. And now we have Elon Musk, another guy who's, a left-wing guy his entire life, was in the Hollywood bubble for so many years and stuff like that. The only reason why people turned on him is because, he started to speak out against, the censorship that was coming in from the left. And he's vocally anti-censorship in that aspect. But at the same token, again, he's very, very left-wing on all the other issues. So it's like we take one guy because, well, he says something that I agree with on one issue, so we just bring him into the fold. And the next thing you know, it's like, we're kowtowing on a lot of the other issues that we would normally have a front against. So it's like, oh, well, Elon Musk is anti-censorship. He's on our side. Yeah, but he's also pro-fornication. He has multiple kids out of wedlock, completely mocking of the family structure. These are all the things you guys said that you were completely for, yet he's basically spinning in the face and all of that. But it's like, yeah, but he's anti-censorship, though. So we're going to look past all that for now because we're more focused on saying whatever I want on Twitter or on YouTube and stuff like that. And because people fold on those issues because it's convenient, this is essentially why we have this fracture in the right days right now. No one's actually willing to stand up and say, hey, you know what? That's great that you agree with me on this issue, but you're really not a good fit for what we're doing here. Maybe we'll collab here in the future, but you're not really right for our movement. And because the right for so many years is looking for that validation because, Hollywood hates the right. The media hates the right. All of the entertainment platforms, the educational platforms, there's just so much heat. We're just begging and yearning for that one day that's like, oh, with that one big name celebrity just comes to our side. It's like embrace him with open arms, prop him up, and he'll be our quote unquote messiah for the right. And that's exactly what we've done with a number of people. And unfortunately, it's bitten us in the butt more times than it's actually worked out for us over the last, several years. So that's kind of the problem. The solution, actually stand for what you claim to stand for and stop bending so much to please the world, essentially, because I guess we can wrap it up a little Bible verse here. Bible tells us, do not be friends with the world, do not love the world, because the love of the world, the love of the Father is not in them, right? So it's like, if you love being popular, if you love fame, if you love the attention that the world gives you, well, guess what? You're going to have to essentially break on a lot of morals that relate directly to God in order to be a friend of the world. This is why all the most popular people in the world are usually pretty wicked, evil people. That's the only way that you can become friends, be liked by the world. So at the end of the day, do you want to be liked by the world, or do you want to be liked by the only man that actually matters in this whole thing, being Christ, right? So you got to be honest with yourself and take accountability about what's going on here. And some people aren't ready to do that.
You got that right. Well, hey, man, that was a mouthful, and that was a lot. I appreciate every bit of that. I mean, I think it's great, and yeah, I think to add on to that is, we'll know by their fruits who they are and what they are, the fruits that they bear. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. Again, enjoying your show, love it. Hope you all will check him out. Go ahead and plug when you're on, where you're at, because I know you're on YouTube, you're on Rumble, anything. Go ahead and plug yourself.
Yeah, so Society Reviews, you can find me on YouTube, Rumble. You can also find me on X as well, on Society Movies. I do 2 streams a week. Tuesday is our barroom show where we do a lot of entertainment related stuff. Sunday is the Bible Lens. I'm currently working on the series The Truth About the Satanic Panic. Go back and watch the first 3 episodes of that. It'll completely change your mind on everything that you thought you knew about Satanic Panic. We haven't even gotten into the bread and butter of the 1980s and the 1990s yet, so it's only going to get more in depth as we go along here. So go check out that series. I write for Abounding in the Comics, so I do articles and movie reviews for them as well. So we also do a Wednesday night stream called 01 with a few people who work there, so you can find me there on Wednesday nights. Outside of that, yeah, I'm pretty much working on a whole bunch of stuff, and be a very, very interesting year with some of the things that are going on, especially as it pertains to biblical prophecy. Because if you guys aren't paying attention to what's going on in the world, it'd probably be a good time to do so. Because we got rumors of possibly being a new pope. We got rumors of a conflict now with Iran, that the U.S. is sending jets over to Iran. Syria doesn't really have a leader right now, and when you look at all these things from a biblical perspective, they have a very significant importance there, especially when we start relating to a little time called the end, the tribulation, 70th week of Daniel. So if you're not paying attention now, you probably want to pay attention, because maybe last call. I'll just say that.
Absolutely. I feel like you and I could probably talk for another 30 minutes to an hour, but I
yeah.
can't hold you that long. So thank you again so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking with you some more. It's been great.
Hey, look, man, I'm definitely willing to come back whenever time you want to talk about more things that are going on in the world, because I have a lot of opinions, as you can tell here. So whenever I can come back and make it work, it'll be good.
Sounds good. Hey, man, thanks so much. All right. Again, just super grateful to be able to have these conversations with like-minded people. May actually have some people coming on that aren't like-minded. I found somebody that I may reach out to that we may have a difference of opinions on a lot of things, and we may have a good, healthy conversation. We will see how that goes, but I do enjoy having people on the show and having conversations nonetheless. What do you guys think about this? Do you like seeing more guests on the show? Would you like to see it having more on there? I know I've done some videos that were just interviews, and I've had some with the interviews included in them. And I kind of like changing it up from time to time. I don't know, keep it fresh, keep it new, right? But please go follow Society Reviews. Again, YouTube, Rumble, X, Bounding into Comics. Go check him out. Go follow him. He does great work. I highly, highly recommend, especially, again, that Sunday show. Can't say enough about that Sunday show. Breaks it down on a real world level, and I love it.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip from the Morning Mayhem. Remember, this is just a portion of the full show that comes out every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you hadn't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the full shows or these tasty little nuggets.